we'll get started with Jayne. Jayne Freeman is a friend of mine. She lives here in Jersey City and knows an awful lot about the street art, the murals in Jersey City. And I know that some of you have mentioned being interested in them, in the street art and the murals, and how you noted, like, you've volunteered this information at the beginning of the semester. I think some of you said it was one of your favorite things about Jersey City. So our next assignment is for you to write about one of them. And this is just a short assignment, not anywhere near as large as the project you just worked on, but really just you're going to pick out one and write about it. And I'll tell you more about that later, but it's a short paper, 2.5 pages or so. So I don't want this, don't worry, it's not going to take you a month to work on this. It will be something kind of light and fun. But I'll stop talking about that at this moment so we can turn this over to Jayne. And Jayne, I need to make you a co-host so you can share.
Share my screen. Okay.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, great. First thing I was just wondering is, are some people watching on their phones? Because this is a very visual presentation. I hope people are on the laptops if possible, just because the visuals are really strong and kind of, will fill up your screen, as you'll see. I'm going to start my presentation and then I will introduce the whole concept. So let's do this.
So I will just say, if you are logged on your phone and you have a tablet or a laptop that you can switch to, feel free to do that. And that might mean you have to log out of your phone and pop back in, or you could stay logged in on your phone until you get logged. But if you need to move in and out in order to do that, go ahead and do that, because we want you to be able to see.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very good. And you'll be in charge of that, obviously.
Yes. I'll work.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this because I've been on the Mural Arts Committee since it was instated several years ago by the mayor of Jersey City. They wanted representation from different groups of, or different people who could weigh in on the mural process. And I'm going to explain why and how that even came about in a few minutes. But I also do, so.
Got her.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, you got that.
Yeah.
Okay, so so in addition to being on that committee, I also gave tours around the city during JCast, which is our yearly Jersey City Art Studio tour, which is a lot of fun. It happens in the fall. And for a couple of those times I had several tours to do in a big packed bus. Everybody is interested in the murals in Jersey City, but not everybody loves them. So that's something else we're going to talk about. This isn't just kind of fluff, like a bunch of pretty pictures. I selected murals that I thought had some history or some social context or something that you can kind of dig into to perhaps write about. And then I'm also going to give you resources to the maps and other ways to look at murals in the city, just from the comfort of your computer. You don't have to like traipse all around our giant city to find them. But once you find one that you like, and perhaps the one that you want to talk about, it might be nice to go and visit it in person. Because some of these are, massive. Some of them are more subtle, but some of the murals are really large. Right here, I have sort of a compilation of different murals that you may or may not be familiar with. This one's down by the Holland Tunnel. You may have seen this. This one is down over by the courthouse on Summit. This one is also coming out of the Holland Tunnel and so forth. Another interesting thing to recognize about the murals is they're not all constant in that they can get painted over. It happens frequently that, somebody buys the building and they change it, or, just different reasons. So that's another interesting part about murals is they're not always permanent. Now, I want to go onto this page just because a big misperception about the mural arts program is that, or all the murals in Jersey City are created by the city's mural arts program, and they are not. So I'm going to show you different, I'm going to refer to them as curators. And they are curators in the sense that they're the ones selecting the artist, finding the building, and making the whole thing happen. So the mural arts program that was started by Steve Fulop probably has the largest amount of real estate covered because they have the funding to do it, they have the resources and so forth. But there are other people who are involved. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention Green Villain and his curation. Savage Habit was one of the early ones, way before. These two were way before the mural arts program was even a thing. And then there's, of course, independents. You know, you're walking down the street in the neighborhood and you see a mural on the side of someone's house that may actually be something that the homeowner or the building owner commissioned. So that happens sometimes as well. All right, so let's start. I mean, this one is like, you know, this is almost predictable, right? The greetings from Jersey City. There's greetings from basically anywhere. You can see this on a postcard or a t-shirt or what have you. And I often think that people assume that this was the city who put this in place because it's so like Jersey City centric. But it is in fact one of the walls curated by Green Villain, who you can see up here. Green Villain tried to have this whole mystique about his group and his curation process and kind of made it, he would often refer to it as a collective, for which I was even included. But we all know it's Greg, okay? It's Greg Edgell. He is the brainchild behind all of this. He started all of this when he was in his 20s. He was just like, I'm going to do this. There's all these walls in Jersey City, and if I just finesse it right, I'm going to get people to pay for the spray paint, and I'm going to get artists, many of them, to work for free, just to have their work visible. So that's an interesting concept, and I just want to show you a little bit of his work. And of course, as you could imagine, he started to bump heads with the city's mural arts program. You know, sometimes it's about territory. So let me just show you, you may be familiar with these walls. So this is on the Holland Tunnel, like on the exit side of the Holland Tunnel. There's the, you know, there's Home Depot and Buy Right. This is the building that's owned by Buy Right. So we sometimes refer to these as the Buy Right walls. You may have passed them a bazillion times and kind of been like, oh, that's interesting or cool. So we'll look at that a little bit later, but I just want to show you each one of these panels. It was like the building was like sectioned out perfectly, these large square panels. And Greg grabbed artists from all over the place. I mean, some of them don't live in Jersey City. Some of them are specific to Jersey City. You know, some of them are world famous. So, and no, I'm pretty sure no one got paid to do this. But again, if you're an artist and someone hands you a bunch of paint, you're like, okay, I'll do it. This is another Green Villain project. This is actually Pep Boys, which you may remember being down by the Newport Mall. Now it's like a huge high-rise, you know, condo buildings and everything that obviously are ubiquitous in Jersey City. And much of the mural program and doing this kind of street art is a statement on that, right? Because we have a lot of buildings that go into disarray or get demolished. This whole project was about demolishing this building. So originally it was Pep Boys, and Greg had talked to the owner of Pep Boys, who said, you know, yeah, sure, you can put up murals against the back wall, the one that faced the light rail. Does anybody remember this? I feel like I'm talking into the ether there, but I know I'm assuming many of you live in Jersey City and possibly passed by this, you know, on the light rail or just walking around downtown.
Feel free to unmute and
Yeah,
because we can't
remember
really
it.
see your hands.
You remember? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's right like down by BJ, or was right down by BJ's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that whole section, BJ's and the supermarket, and then the mall is right nearby. But it was like prime spot, the back of the building, because the light rail goes by there a bazillion times a day. So you always want to put murals in high visibility areas. And so Green Villain, Greg, is kind of the expert at that. So this was a whole other project. Now,
how long ago was that? That was like 5 years ago or so?
2015.
7 years. Okay, so keep in mind these are mostly college, first year students in college. So you all would have been, most of you would have been pretty young at that point.
Oh, that's true.
But does not mean that you wouldn't necessarily remember it because
Right, you
you
may
took
have
the light
noticed it.
route. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. What was I going to say? I wanted to say that a big element of street art incorporates graffiti. And we do make a distinction between the two, right? So graffiti, and you can see a lot of this on the side of the building, is graph. Like right here is somebody's tag. Here's somebody's tag. That's even considered someone's tag. You can kind of see all along there. So graffiti and street art they have a sort of a synergy together, yet they also have a conflict together. Remember, street art is going to be more sanctioned. In other words, there's been permission given for that person, that artist, to put their work on someone's property. Whereas inherent to graffiti is the concept that it's vandalism, basically. Nobody asked you to put your tag up on the building. You just did it. So there's an interesting partnership that occurs here. So we look at this building. This is, it's covered with messy graffiti. So nobody even bothered to make it look good. It was just like, sometimes when we see graffiti tags on top of existing graffiti tags, we refer to that as beef. This sort of a colloquial term for the graph writers fighting, sparring with each other. It's like, hey, that was my wall. You don't belong here. Maybe this isn't your town, whatever. They have all sorts of reasons that they may have beef. But this brings me to the reason why the Jersey City Mural Arts program got started. A lot of people think that it's under the umbrella of an arts or cultural grant. And it's not. It's actually a grant that's called the Clean Communities Grant. So the concept is that when you have a building that looks blighted because it's got graph on it, if you cover it with a mural, graph writers won't put their tags on top of the mural. It's basically an evidence-based philosophy about raising the just sort of the aesthetic of the community by a lot of people don't want to look at messy graffiti like this, but they would prefer to look at an artistically constructed mural. All right. So the Mural Arts program in Jersey City was given money just to do this. And that's what makes it rather unique. It also makes it a little bit impervious to criticism, in the sense that there are people who, when they want to criticize the Mural Arts program, say, those are my tax paying dollars. I pay taxes for this town and I didn't approve of that mural. Well, sorry, but your tax dollars had nothing to do with the mural that you don't like on, Sip Avenue or whatever. So let me just show you here a little bit of what the process looks like. So here's an image of this wall on Tunnelly Avenue. Here is the artist's rendering. Now this is a rendering, right? Before the person gets approved, we have to show a rendering or a mock-up of what they want the mural to look like. That has to get approved by the committee that I'm on. And also, of course, by the neighborhood. They canvass the neighborhood and get approval, and obviously the building owner. So this one is kind of an interesting story, because I don't know if you know this place. It's a ringside. It's like a bar restaurant on Tunnelly Avenue at Manhattan. And Mike Tyson, the boxer who's pictured here, actually has a pigeon coop on top of that building. And he's had it for years, and he still comes occasionally to Jersey City to visit and I guess tend to it to some degree. But mostly Mario, the owner of the ringside and that building, he does most of the tending to with the pigeons. So here you can see the concept from the artist was to show Mike, and then to show him with the pigeon coop and all the pigeons flying into this sort of like rainbow sky. And then this is what it ended up looking like. So it's funny, I want to go back and forth for a second. It's not exactly the same. Sorry. Here's the actual one. Here's the rendering. You might be saying like, this looks a lot better, but you know, you can't always replicate it. Like this is a photo that he slugged in there of Tyson, and this is, you know, him painting it. But you can see the concept, sorry, the concept holds true. You know, this is what the artist, willpower, that's what he goes by. This is what he set out to do, and this is how he completed it.
What is this looking at it from north of Ringside or south? I've never noticed this mural.
It's on the north side. So
yeah, okay.
You looking south. Yeah, well now maybe that
driving south on Funnily. Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. I mean, I knew the story about Mike Tyson and the pigeons. Very cool.
That's a funny story.
Yeah.
All right, now I mentioned the Mural Arts Committee and so forth. So let's go back in time a little bit. This is 2013, and I chose this image for a couple of reasons. One, it is the first mural that the Jersey City Mural Arts program, again, to deter graffiti, it's the first mural they commissioned. These are the two artists. So this guy is called Pawn. You know, everybody has their artist name and then their real name. So that's Pawn. His real name is Sean. And this guy is Emilio Florentine. I don't know if he likes for his real name to be put out there, so I'm just going to call him Emilio. All right, now they worked collaboratively on this mural. So Sean did the imagery here, and Emilio's signature is anytime you see murals around Jersey City that look like flowers that are sort of like busted up into several pieces, that's his style. That's all he does. It's really kind of interesting. And in this case, it's a combination of flowers and feathers. But here's the thing with this mural. We have a Lenape Indian, you know, the Lenape Indian tribe represented here. And this is true to the history of Jersey City, that area around Communipaw. This one sits on Grand and Summit. I think the actual address. You have 13 Summit where it meets Grand. And it's called the Lost Lenape Trail. Now, that's an allusion to Communipaw being a Native American trail. So this, you know, this is a difficult one because the American flag is on her face backward. Now, that was the artist's sort of ironic attempt at basically saying that, yeah, you know, this is lamenting the genocide and kind of like recognizing that this isn't this person's America. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have to like drill into it too far. You can kind of like understand what the references are going to be here. But this is one of the problems with street art. Not everybody interprets it that way. I had an argument with somebody who was like, oh, I think it's so gross that the American flag is on her face. I was like, don't you see it as it's a backward flag, or don't you see it as like a statement, a negative statement, not a like, yay, I'm proud to be an American? Like that wouldn't make any sense at all. So look, people in this city get very, very touchy about anything Native American. That brings me to this mural, also by Sean. All right, so that's Pawn. And if you look closely, you can see him standing here on the fire escape. So Sean did this mural. This one is, where is this? 11 Tunnelly Avenue, again, like where it meets SIP. It's like right by the diner there if you wanted to visit it. And it's just a residential apartment building and it overlooks a big parking lot. So anyway, he put this together, and this was supposed to be yet like another tribute to Native Americans. Let me just see what he says here. He was kind of explaining that the intent was ironic and that the symbol of liberty looms over an image that represents the Standing Rock Sioux. So you can see that over here. Now, you think about like the average person walking around Jersey City, especially somebody who's, you know, maybe being a little bit more like socially conscious or maybe has an artistic background, which is kind of what happened. And they looked at this and saw a number of trite, cliche Native American images. She wrote in her letter to the city that this could have been painted on the back of a denim jacket. This is something you'd find in the mall, basically, this cliche image of the wolf braying at the moon. And that these two things together were just a terrible juxtaposition. Again, cliche and I mean, she skewered this mural. And poor Sean was like, that's not true. I had approval from a representative from the Alliance of the Colonial Era Tribes. He had approval from the neighborhood. There were a lot of people who were like, this is beautiful, go for it. And, you know, he tried to throw in, which is not always the best argument. He was like, my wife is part Native American. You know how that goes down. So he was defensive. The city was defensive. This woman who was speaking out vocally against this mural started a big hubbub about it. It got published in a couple of like art critique papers. I want to call them papers, but they're like online publications. And that was when the city was like, okay, we have to have a more formal committee. So it was after this mural, I think it was like 2017 or 16, that they were like, okay, we have to like, we have to take into account, we have to have a more formalized curation process. And that should include artists and representatives of the community who can look at each one of these renderings and approve it or not approve it. Any questions about that? So these two are, you know, kind of like interesting topics if you want to get into the social commentary on the Native American, you know, history in Jersey City and in this entire area. Now,
I had no idea about that hubbub of that mural.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't. I missed it. I mean, I knew there was a lot of controversy over murals being approved in general. I did not know that was what spurred that.
Yeah, it's I don't want to name names, but it was a woman who teaches at the School of Visual Arts, and she found the whole thing to be appalling in her words. So you can dig that up if you want to look at controversy surrounding the murals. And speaking of controversy, this was probably the most controversial mural that was ever done. I sort of hesitate to call it a mural. Oh, somebody wants to speak, Michael? Go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like there's more like backlash on the artist than there is like positive. Is that true or no?
Yeah, I'm highlighting the ones that sparked controversy. I'm going to show you other ones that nobody had anything negative to say about too. But I'm showing you this. I'm showing you this because it's an interesting element when you have a big, diverse city like we have here, and you throw murals on walls and you don't think about how this is going to impact the immediate community, you have a problem. And so that's what I'm kind of like giving you a little bit of the history here. This one is a really specific case in point. I sort of hesitate to call it a mural because a mural refers to a wall, and this was on the ground, but you get the
We
gist.
call it like a floral or like a few.
I don't think
Floral. I love it.
But anyway, I don't know if any of you remember this one, because this was a lot of fun for people. You know, it was a Monopoly board. You could like, it was interactive. This image here just shows like little kids playing on it, or there was something fun about it. It was Jersey City specific. You can see it's got Communipaw Ave, it's got Ogden, it's got the light rail, it's got the Colgate clock. Here you can see here. This is his rendering. The artist is named Gary Winans. He goes by Mr. Ability. But here's why it got controversial. You know, on a Monopoly board, you have the jail right in the corner. Well, he drew himself in jail with the words, "You got bagged." And the community decided this was negative representation of people of color. Even the councilman or councilwoman at the time, Angela McKnight, I believe it was like, oh no, this is not acceptable. And lots of people in the community were like, that's not cool. You can't show a man of color behind bars. It just makes the wrong statement. So the artist comes in and he's like, what are you guys talking about? That's me. That's my story. I'm the one who got put in jail for doing graffiti in Jersey City. It's really like an interesting backstory. Over here where you see the cop in the corner, this is Mr. Ability's little tag. So
That cop is actually Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons.
I know.
Say that again?
The cop on the corner, one of the corners, that's Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons.
Oh,
He's
oh my
like,
gosh, I never noticed.
like the cops in Springfield are kind of corrupt.
Right, kind of.
I know. That was another thing that people had a problem with. But it's the artist's intent. He wanted to make the cop a character. It's very common in street art and graffiti to include cartoon characters. That comes up a lot. It's like just like a thing that happens. So it made perfect sense that he did that. Oh, but people did not like that. They didn't like the cop, but they really didn't like Mr. Ability behind bars. And it didn't matter how strongly he said, this is my story. I'm showing me, a man of color behind bars. This is about me. It's autobiographical, whatever it is, he said, nobody was buying, and the whole thing got buffed. It was up for maybe 3 weeks. It created controversy after controversy. And finally, the city was like, okay, forget it. We give up. And when I say buffed, that means they painted over the entire thing, which was really sad. Any questions about that?
And this is on the, you should say where it is. I don't think you did. It's on the pedestrian walkway. Was on the pedestrian.
Yeah. I didn't feel like it was that necessary to pinpoint it because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was just in a very public place though, too. I mean, as all of these.
Yeah, as you can see here, this is
Right.
Newark Avenue, right at Barrow. All
Yeah.
right, so now let's go on to something a little bit more floral and pretty here. All right, so this is the same artist, and this one was commissioned by the Jersey City Mural Arts Program, but this one was not. This one came first, and this was curated by the group Savage Habit. I want to talk about this one first for a second, because this one is, I like to call it like the secret mural. You cannot see this from the street. So if you can picture Ogden Avenue in the Heights, right? You go to the south end of Ogden Avenue and it dead ends. It dead ends like a little bit past where Supremo is. So it dead ends, and then there's a garden. And the garden has a gate to it, so you can't always get in.
It's been unlocked lately, by the way, if anyone wants to see it.
Okay, good. So you walk into the garden and then you turn around and there is that mural, which is absolutely, I think, is gorgeous. What I love about this one is this artist, his name is Gaia Street Art, and he started very, very young. He became like a sensation overnight. He probably wasn't even out of college before he was being voted best street art in the Baltimore area. In fact, he got voted best street artist for so many years in a row that they made a new category called best street artist who is not Gaia. Seriously. Okay, now this is what we call the Dutch Baroque style. This is a very specific style of still life. And he always incorporates that. That's kind of his thing, that he likes to paint, but he also likes to put in figures. So this is supposed to be Henry Hudson over here. And then there's all these gorgeous flowers and a monarch butterfly in that garden. That garden happens to attract a lot of monarch butterflies in the fall. So that's kind of a reference to the environment. I also love that this is not a mistake. Up here, the artist left part of the digital rendering as he would have seen it on his computer screen. So he left it like that, and you can even see, the tabs at the top on what looks like to be a Macintosh computer. So there's that. Did you ever notice that, Anne, when looking?
I had never noticed the tabs. I've always liked the digital rendering part though in the top. I love the unfinished nature of it. But
Yes.
this is a mural that's in my neighborhood, and I walk down to this garden a lot, almost every day that it's nice out. So I love this mural. But it is so hidden. You would never know it's there. And I probably walked into that garden many times before I even realized it was there. Because you do have to turn around. You have to walk all the way in and then turn around and look up.
Right. You have to turn around. You walk into it and turn it around. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now over here, a lot of people thought this was Shakespeare. It is not. It is Frederick Henry, who is known as the Prince of Orange. So he was one of the settlers that established the area that was formerly known as New Amsterdam, right? So New York was called New Amsterdam, and parts of New Jersey actually, fell under that district. But next to Frederick Henry is yet again a Lenape Indian representation. So we have that right there, kind of like almost kind of seamed together. You can draw your own conclusions about what was intended there, but let me just see what the artist says. He's describing it as, no, he doesn't really say anything. He just says that it's the Prince of Orange who represents New Amsterdam and a Lenape native. And the flowers give homage to a Dutch artist from Harlem. I mean, but the original Harlem, the Dutch Harlem. All right, so there's that. So
Where's that one? I don't think I know that one.
this is on Christopher Columbus.
Oh,
So, like,
okay.
so, yeah, I mean, Christopher Columbus between Barrow and Grove. So
Oh, yeah. I know where it is. Yep.
the color is a little like oversaturated here in this image, but so it's not quite as like bright and vibrant when you pass by it now. All right, so any questions about that one? About these guys? All right, so that's the artist Gaia, and that's his style. Again, like throwing in a lot of like Dutch references, including the style of painting.
How do you spell Gaia?
Gaia is Gaia.
That's what I thought. Okay, in case anyone wants to look him up. G-A.
Also not his real name.
Right, but
Gaia, I think I have a little bit about him. No, just about his history and about how he went to the Maryland Institute College of Arts, a prestigious art school, like I think it's the oldest in the country. And then he went on to RISD, which is also a big art school in Rhode Island. Sorry, Michael, you had a question.
Yeah, for the Monopoly one, you know how long that took? Because people walking on the ground and stuff like that. Like, you know how long that took?
This mural, I actually was there for a lot of the painting of that mural, and it took him, I think, 4 days. It's hard to like predict with the mural because some of it is weather contingent. But he did this in the summer, and we had warm, dry weather, and he knocked it out. I think he had an assistant too, helping him with some parts of it. But
is that the one you were asking about, Michael, or did you say the Monopoly one? I wasn't sure if you said Lenape or Monopoly.
Oh no, Monopoly.
Monopoly board.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
How long it took him to paint that? That took several days. I remember he worked on it for a while. There are a lot of pictures you can look up online if you just do Monopoly board Jersey City. If you can remember Mr. Ability or just Gary, that'll get you to all the articles. It was picked up by a lot of the New Jersey press because it was like so controversial. Here's a mural that's not controversial at all. I chose this one because I wanted to kind of like look at the artistic references that are going on here. So this mural is by an artist who goes by the name Zunches. Is that right? Yeah, Zunches. His real name is Ruben Sanchez. He's a Spanish artist, and he came into Jersey City specifically to do this mural for the Mural Arts program. And as soon as I saw it, I fell in love with it because it's of a very particular Spanish style that I love, Cubism, from the early part of the 20th century. If you look at it, when you take the time to just let your eye roll over all the imagery, you start to see things. You see, like this person is holding something. Here's a bottle of wine. Here's a female figure. You see that? Her face, her hair, breasts, body, and so forth. A plant, another figure down here on the ground. It starts to feel very Picasso-like, and that's no accident. Take a look at here. We have 3 artists from the Cubist period. This is Juan Gris, who's a Spanish artist. This is Frédéric Léger, who is French, but also working in the Cubism style. And this, of course, is Mr. Pablo Picasso, who some of you should be familiar with. Now, I just want to show you back and forth. Look at this and look at this.
And 100 years time difference between them.
Exactly. So, you know, it's a beautiful, I feel like it's an homage. I don't feel like he's, you know, ripping anyone off or anything. I mean, this is distinctly his style. A really unusual color palette when you think of it. You've got these like lavenders, oranges, and reds, you know, colors that, and yellow, you know, don't necessarily go together, but just look so exquisite together. So that also could be, you know, if somebody is interested in writing about the artistic references that go into a mural. And I just want to say one other thing about, you know, sometimes a mural is just a pretty picture. It doesn't need to have historical reference. It doesn't need to be making a political statement. You know, it's just pretty. This actually sits, oh, I want to give you the address of this one, but it's in a schoolyard. This is 190 Monticello. So that's right near Jewett Ave. So that's the Bergen Lafayette area. And if you know the Cafe Snapdragon, it's like right across the street. So you would walk across the street and you could get a good image of that. But of course it is a schoolyard. So I was lucky enough to sneak in there while the gates were open, you know, and there were no kids in the way. All right. Now this one is very, very famous. Why is it so famous? A, it's David Bowie, and B, its location is like, you know, it can be seen from everywhere. This is a very tall building. This is a huge mural. You can see it when you're traveling on the, there's a lot to do with the Holland Tunnel, I gotta say, with murals, because I mean, think about it. Thousands of people take that connector from the turnpike down to the Holland Tunnel and then back up again. So murals that are in that proximity are highly viewed. You know, they're just going to get a lot of eyeballs on them. Funny thing about this mural is my understanding, I don't have this in print, but my understanding was this was an architectural mistake. The cast iron loft developers had intended something else to happen over here. I'm not sure if it was they were going to have balconies or windows or something, but as it turned out, they couldn't do what they intended to do, and the wall had to be left blank and, you know, just free of windows or any kind of egress. So they were like faced with this big, ugly brick wall, and the developers got in touch with the city, and then together they commissioned Cobra. So that's K-O-B-R-A. Cobra is a South American artist. He's from Brazil. He is world famous. He's done murals everywhere, all over the world. Even there were some beautiful images he did for the Olympics when the Olympics were in, I guess they were in Brazil at some point, but he did all these like beautiful faces. So he always does a photorealism style with these like blocks of color on top of it. And so again, does this mural mean anything? No, it's just a pretty picture of David Bowie. Here's another thing that people said. Why David Bowie? What does he have to do with Jersey City? Well, not every mural has to be like a project to reflect the culture, the people, the history. Sometimes it's just, this is what we wanted. This came up shortly after David Bowie died, so we could look at it as that, as kind of like a, you know, just a memorial to his gift to music. All right, is everybody familiar with this one? Is this one that like everybody has seen, you know, in passing?
Yeah, it's my favorite one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the story. And you know, what's interesting now when you look at it is that from all the exposure to the elements, the colors look more like this, like very faded. I don't know if Cobra's going to come back and do touch-ups, but it's becoming faded over time. But again, that happens. All right, now let's move on to Shepard Fairey. Shepard Fairey is very, very famous. He's also world renowned. He started out as just, a kid in art school who created stickers of Andre the Giant and mass produced them and put them everywhere. They were all over Rhode Island, but then he came to New York and slapped them up all over New York. And then he went one step further and made stencils. This is true graffiti. This is like, nobody asked you to stencil Andre the Giant's face. In the stencil, he stylized. So you can see this is more of like a, this looks more like a photographic image. And then it got more stylized into the basic image of Andre the Giant. Now he's been asked, a million times, why Andre the Giant? He doesn't have an answer. It's not really, it just became this like weird, iconic figure. He was a wrestler. He had a couple of appearances in movies. He was giant. He was 7'4" and weighed over 500 pounds. So he was, he's just like a quirky character from the, I guess I'm going to say the 80s. And then this was more in the 90s. Now, you also may recognize this or only know Obey as a clothing label. That's how huge Shep Fairey became. He went from like just a kid slapping up stickers and doing stencils to having a full-blown clothing line, and then to being a massive mural producer with a statement. Now, many of you have possibly passed by this mural. It's on Monmouth Street. All the way at the end of Monmouth, like where it's between the two Holland Tunnel overpasses. And this was put on a building. This had nothing to do with the mural arts program. This was put on a building owned by Manna Contemporary Fine Arts. So Manna is another like cultural institution in Jersey City. Their whole little enclave that includes galleries and artist studios and storage space and a theater and a dance company and a very overpriced cafe. That's all up in like where the Canco lofts are. So that's on Tunnelly, sorry, that's on Newark Avenue, just before it goes to Tunnelly. You could look that up if you want to go to Manna. I suggest if you're interested in art, you definitely pay a visit to Manna at some point in time. This building is not over there. This building is like a rundown storage space that Manna owns. And like I said, it's like in this tucked away little area. Like when people ride their bike through that area, they're kind of like looking over their shoulder. You know where I'm talking about, Anne, right? Like
I do. This is my favorite mural.
Is this your favorite mural? Yeah. Well, I don't know if you ever thought about it, but there's messages here that refer to oil. And Shep Fairey started to become more politically active and make artwork that was a statement on our obsession with fossil fuels and our dependency on it, and how it is basically, the cause of so much strife. We have war over these issues, and we also have a lot of pollution, biohazard, global warming as a result. So it really, the addiction to fossil fuels is really like has a ripple effect all over the place. So you can see that this woman, like her little rose here, is dripping in oil. And there's this kind of like idea of like oil being the richest black, this kind of statement about, let me see what he says. I don't know. I can't, it's better if it just comes out of my head. So again, Shepard Fairey's making a statement on, it's like a political statement, it's a environmental statement. He's really kind of like doing it in a pretty picture, but there's always that subtext. So when you look at his art, look for that because the message is frequently there. Also, I think it's worth noting that Shep is referencing Chinese propaganda posters and Russian communist kind of style propaganda. That's another thing that factors into his sensibility. All right, so this mural, again, it's really huge. I can't remember how large it is, but it takes up like this whole side of the building. Commissioned by Mana, not by the city of Jersey City. This is where he started. And after this one got finished, the city was like, hey, we want our own mural too. So then they commissioned Shep to do this area, which is, I don't know if you can recognize it because I didn't pull back from it, but that's Grove Street. That is literally, you walk upstairs from the Grove Street path and boom, you see this massive wave. And once again, the people didn't like it. Why? Because it reminded them too much of Hurricane Sandy. Now take a look at this. This was the original rendering. Shep didn't come up with this just out of his head, like, hey, let me do this. He showed a couple of potentials to the mayor and to the developer who was also helping to sponsor this. And he came up with this one. He's like, well, this is my statement on ocean pollution and also the impact of global warming. As you can see, we've got like a tsunami style wave, also because it's very inky black, so it can also reference oil spills, which are another terrible byproduct on our dependency on fossil fuels. And here, of course, you see an oil rig. So look what he did here. To make it Jersey City centric, he replaced the oil rig with the Statue of Liberty.
So fascinating.
Did you know that, Anne?
I don't think I did. No. And then he changed the color palette, which really changes the whole sensibility of it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But did you know that people were like, there were a lot of people who were like, we hate this. Why a giant wave that looks like it's going to demolish our city?
I knew people hated it. In fact, it's interesting. One of the faculty members at, you know, Tris McCall, right? He wrote a scathing article about it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And he's married to Hillary Englert, who's a professor of English at NJCU. So she's my colleague. And I remember reading Tris's damnation of this article, of this mural, and I kept thinking, I kind of love it. But you know, and I also don't have, even I know he didn't create this as a commentary on Hurricane Sandy, but even if he had, for me, that's not, I don't mind that. I actually think that that's a powerful way to read it, but that's my sensibility, is that I don't mind when things reference something traumatic and difficult. And I think sometimes we need those reminders. Even though, again, it's not, I mean, was Shepard Fairey ever thinking of, when he put the Statue of Liberty there, do you know if he was thinking of Hurricane Sandy at all when he changed this from the original rendering, the original conception?
No, I don't know, but one could very easily make the argument that Hurricane Sandy and many other climate catastrophes that we've had over the past decade or so are a direct result of global warming. So yeah. My feeling was like, great, it reminds you of Hurricane Sandy. Well, you should be reminded of that.
Because, that's my point. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so, which is why I like that reading of it.
Exactly. So yeah. I don't know how much of that got into the discussion when he was like showing the images to, you know, to full up and saying like, okay, these are my options. And, you know, I only got 3 days more in this New York area. So we got to make a decision quickly. You know, it probably was, you know, there probably wasn't a giant menu of options to choose from. I personally would have preferred to see something more Shep Fairey-like as I interpret this style. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can recognize that this is his style, but it is a little more generic than his signature. You know what I'm saying? So, but whatever. We have 2 Shep Fairey murals in our fine city, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and also Shepard Fairey created the Obama posters, right?
Oh, I forgot to mention that. Yeah. Which,
if you look at the Andre the Giant stencil, it's very similar.
It's similar, right, right.
Yeah.
He just did it. He just took the image, kind of stylized it and put hope underneath, and it became this huge deal. And he got sued because he took a photo of Obama that, weirdly enough, the photographer was able to recognize that's my picture. Like he knew it was his picture, even though it had become stylized.
Wow.
So.
But did Obama hire him for that or no?
Oh, no. He did that completely independently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's such an iconic image that resonates with Obama's campaign.
I know.
That's why I actually thought it was sanctioned by and commissioned by the campaign.
No, I think at some point the campaign bought the posters. They were just like, oh, hey, we like this, but it was not, they didn't approach him first. He came up with it.
So fascinating.
Well, there's a whole documentary on that, so. So speaking of sort of, on the social commentary side, this is a female artist who goes by the name BK Fox. She doesn't live in Jersey City. She's in New York City, but she did a series of murals that were all about don't tell me how to be a girl. And so she used real women, young women. She used girls to depict in this photorealism style the idea of kind of like our sort of cliche idea of femininity being attached to makeup. This line here, maybe it's me, is a reference to a Maybelline ad. Maybe it's Maybelline. She did it in the same kind of typeface. And this whole project was more about like, don't tell me how to be what I already am. That was essentially her statement. So it's kind of like a little bit of like an act of like feminist defiance, just kind of like saying, don't dictate to me. And she specifically chose young women because she wanted to sort of empower this new generation of women to not be susceptible to our media version ideals of what femininity is. So that's another one that I feel like, if somebody wants to, and if the location on that one, in case, anybody in the group wants to write about something that is, a woman making a commentary. That one is, I'm so sorry, I don't have the address on this one.
Is it in Greenville?
It is in Greenville.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm blanking on.
Well,
I've driven by it many times.
I'm gonna resolve that for you guys. I want to move a little quicker because I don't want to run out of time.
I was gonna say there's one
Something beautiful.
Sorry, hey, go ahead.
There's one in like either Greenville or Bergen Lafayette. It's on MOK. It's like a George Floyd one or like something like about police brutality. There's a good one on MOK.
There's a George Floyd one painted by Distort that says, "We can't breathe." Is that the one you're referring to? But that's not MLK, it's on Monticello.
Oh, might be Monticello. It's like,
yeah, it sounds like it's Monticello where it meets Communipaw. Yeah, Distort painted that. He just got, permission from the city. He did that all on his own volition during that time. But yeah, no, that's another interesting one. Now, I just wanted to show, this is a great video. We're not going to watch it right now because we don't have time, but it's on the Jersey City Mural Arts website, which I'm going to point you to at the end. But I wanted to show you this artist right here, just to kind of shake it up so you don't have all still images.
Collaborate with the young people that were going to be in the space. And so I'm happy that they set up a way for me to have conversations with you. We did a series of Skype conversations that led to this idea, representing joy, representing aspiration, representing hope, you know what I mean? And I think that aligns with the work that I do all the time, but it was wonderful to be able to do it with the collaboration of the youth, you know what I mean? And I think that helps a project like this go a long way.
So I just wanted to kind of show you what the actual artist looks like in their environment. And that particular artwork is on PS 15. That's on 135 Stegman Street. And it's nice because you see Brandon, he goes by B Mike. You see him interacting with you know, the students, and like he said, it's a collaborative effort. And sometimes street art can be a collaborative effort. That's just kind of like another thing to recognize. Oh, this is another one of, so we have 2 murals by Brendan. And this one, this isn't the best image of it, but you've got this image here and this little quote, cartoon quote here. How can Black people paint flowers at a time like this? So that's, again, Brendan making this statement about art, about reflecting on what's going on in our culture at the moment. It's you know, it's a Black Lives Matter without putting Black Lives Matter into the actual dialogue. So I thought he could be somebody who might be interesting to explore a little bit. He's like a big up and coming artist, and he's received a lot of like grants and accolades, even from the White House. So we like him a lot in the mural program, try to use him frequently. This one, I don't have that much to say about this one, but I love this image. This was, these are, I believe they're twins, Hal and Nosum, N-O-S-M. They work together. This was a project that it's called Paint Red. You can see up in the corner how it says red in parentheses. This is basically a global campaign to end AIDS. So once again, we have an image where you can't tell that there's anything to do with AIDS in this, but that is the sentiment behind the project. And this one was commissioned by the city. This is on Orient Ave, also in Greenville. All right, so that's a beautiful one. And then I wanted to throw in this one. This one happened sort of rogue style. I was responsible for pulling this one together because the death of this young woman, Kala, really touched me. She was only, I don't know, if anybody of you heard this story, it was only a couple of years ago. She's a Jersey City resident. She was only, I think, 22 years old. And she and her friends were cruising around JC in a car that they were not supposed to be in. The driver was not supposed to be driving. Everybody was drunk. Everybody was high. They crashed into one of the walls coming, when you come down Dickinson Hill, it's kind of steep. And if you're going too fast, she hit the side. Everybody walked out of the accident but Kala. And not only was she dead at the scene, but all of her friends left her there because they were so horrified that they got into a drunk driving accident and that they might go to jail for drunk driving. Little did they know, of course, they were going to be found out. The driver was put in jail, and that was like a whole big story. So I had this idea to do a little tribute to her. There are 3 artists, local artists referenced here. It was Distort who did the likeness. This is Mustard, who is an NJCU graduate. And then on the other side is Clarence Rich. You can't see his image, but the artwork goes all around the pole. This one, I have to tell you, under the hat, we did not get any permission for. We just did it. And these poles you can see here actually belong to the Turnpike. But you kind of like say, oh yeah, so-and-so said it was okay. And then you say to the other person, oh, so-and-so said it was okay. And you get away with it. Fortunately, this tribute has stayed here for several years and the family is deeply grateful for that. So you may see those around Jersey City, tributes to different people who perished in, sometimes in accidents, sometimes in different ways. Or we like to do that in Jersey City as a tribute to the person and as some way of holding their memory for the family.
Does anybody know where this one is? Do you recognize the look? I mean, it says 7th and Newark, but these are the pilings or whatever you call them that hold up the
Turnpike overpass.
The Turnpike overpass as it comes down to toward the Holland Tunnel. So this isn't very big. I mean, I think you can see the scale, but
you can see the scale. Yeah,
but it's very visible.
I probably come up to here.
Yeah.
No, I come up to here. Yeah, but I mean, Anne, you've seen this, right?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. It's very powerful. it's,
You knew the backstory because I posted about it on Facebook.
yeah, I did know the story for sure, but it's, you really can't miss it when you're driving down. So even something very, small comparatively to some of the other things we've seen can be quite impactful.
That's right. And once again, there were people who complained about it. I know at least one person wrote, "Why are we glorifying this girl who died in a reckless, in a reckless car accident?" Yeah, which I thought was completely unfair and inappropriate. But again, everybody has something to say.
Yeah.
Okay, now just wanted to. I wanted to show. Oh, okay. So let me just go off my presentation for a second. I want to show you this. This is really important if you want to do, for you to do any follow-up on this. Go to jcmap.org and you'll scroll down to the map. So you can use this to scroll through all the different murals, and then you'll see on the right on the map showing a red dot as to where it is. So you can go through this and you can find, I only showed you a tiny fraction of what's available, but you can scroll through this and be like, "Ooh, I want to write about this one," or "I want to, pursue this," or figure it out from this map. So this is going to be a very helpful tool for you. I think if you
And I've already put some of these links in our Blackboard page. So I definitely have a link to the Mural Arts Program page.
Okay, cool.
I'll make sure that this specific page is also linked to, so that people don't have to search
Right.
for it.
So, and then Canvas without the A, Canvas like that, that's another great website.
And I link to that too for everyone.
Yeah. And that's also an app. So if you don't want to do it on the computer, you can just go to your, you can just download the app on your phone, and then you'll also get a map to Jersey City murals. I thought I would end by showing this cool video here of, this was a Green Villain project, and these are some of our local artists. These are guys who live in Jersey City. We've got Clarence Rich, Mustart, and Distort, and Intel. So let's watch this for it's like 1 minute long. All right, so let me just go back to this and kind of end with that. Again, these are some of the references. Also, you can look up Green Villain and go to the Green Villain website. Those videos, you can't embed Vimeo videos into a Google app. Very funny. They only want you to reference YouTube. So that's why I had to go outside of the presentation to show you that. But he's got a bunch more on his website, a lot of great drone footage. So if you're curious about checking that out, so look at Green Villain, Canvas, the JC Map, website, and the subsequent map that shows all the murals all over the city. And that basically wraps it up, but I'd love to answer questions if anybody has.
Anyone have questions? And if you ask questions and if you're willing to put your camera on, please do. Again, not required, but if you are willing, it's nice to see faces sometimes.
No questions, but I just thought that was like super interesting to like really see.
Thank you. I'm so glad. Is that?
Anybody have questions? I do, if others don't, but
I mean, I don't have a question, but I kind of grew up in Jersey City and I'm an art major, so I definitely did notice the murals around Jersey City, and it was kind of cool like seeing the backstory. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Yeah.
I was curious, do you want to stop sharing the screen or, I mean, you don't have to, but, or put it on an image that, that we can enjoy, but, I was curious about women artists. This seems to be very heavily, like most of the artists seem to be men. And I was curious, I mean, you showed us the one, the Maybe It's Me mural, and do you see many women making these street art projects?
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you look at 100 street artists, there's going to be maybe like 6 or 7 that are women.
Mhm.
It's true. I don't know what the reason for that is necessarily, but just, you know, if you look, the mural arts program really tries to make it as diverse as possible. Now, one of our big Jersey City artists is Catherine Hart, and she's in the video that gets, you know, that I showed you a little piece of. I'm just gonna let her in. She's in that video talking about the mural arts program and so forth, and she has several pieces around Jersey City. You know, it's not evenly distributed. I'll just say that much. There are just a handful of women who feel comfortable being up on ladders and scaffolding and, you know, going large in terms of like their artwork, but they are there. You just reminded me that there was an artist who I really loved her work, and she lived in Dubai. So she was female and she was, you know, of Arab background, and she was like, I'm going to be in the New York area. Could I do a mural in Jersey City? So I set her up, you know, with the city, and we got a wall in Greenville on like off of Lincoln, I think, and she did a beautiful piece. And it was really interesting. She really like connected with the neighborhood people. So her piece is like this abstraction, but because she got to know all the different people in the neighborhood gathered around, they were like, what's going on here? You know, this woman is painting on the wall and she's doing this really cool design. And they all said to her, could you put a tribute here, like just put the names of the people on the block who have passed. And so she did that. She incorporated all these names and votive candles and everything. And she integrated the immediate community into what she was doing. And I thought that was really lovely.
Wow.
But
what
yeah.
was her name?
She goes by Fats. Her name is Fatima.
Got it.
She goes by Fats. I don't have her Instagram in front of me, but I could give that to you after.
But that's another piece, that community involvement. So not all of these artists are from Jersey City. Some are, as you said, but I love it. Even in the short clips you showed us, you know, seeing like kids and people gathered around. It does seem to be, it's such an intriguing thing when you see it happening in your community. People want to go out and watch. It's like, and it's a very positive thing rather than like when there's an emergency and a fire and everyone goes out and like what's going on. But this is a positive thing that people want to go and see. Like, what are you painting? What's going on? Who are you? Tell us about this. You know, and little kids connect with art just the way adults do. So I love seeing like those little kids like looking around, and when the artist let them be there, and it's just
Oh, absolutely.
really interesting. It's fun. Even when the artwork isn't fun, the process kind of is, you know, there's an energy to it.
Definitely. A lot of those street artists, you know, if I've been like hanging out while they're doing that little video I showed you at the end. I was there at that. I'm in that video for like a split second. If you blink, you can't see me, but there were children there. I don't know if you saw, you saw a couple of pit bulls, and then they're like, you know, the street artists, a lot of them are like in their 30s, and they're, you know, they're having kids, and they're still living like the graffiti street art lifestyle. A lot of them do both. They do graph and they do street art. And that was a really interesting thing to sort of bring that together, especially because graffiti, they were worried that they could have the fate of Mr. Ability. You know, somebody will recognize like, hey, wait a minute, that's your tag? Oh no, now you're responsible for all of that vandalism you did. And you have to, like, you know, you'll be fined, or you'll have some like jail time, or you'll have some community service. So an interesting thing that the mural arts program came up with was, if someone gets picked up for doing graffiti, we give them community service, but they can choose, instead of just picking up litter, they can choose to do painting projects. And then if they show that they actually have some talent and ability, they will sometimes get a job, like working with another artist or doing their own mural. That's what happened with Mr. Ability. You know, he got picked up for tagging, but then they were like, oh, actually, you're a good artist. So why don't we put you to work and utilize your skills in a more legitimized manner? And we'll pay you for it.
Wow. Does anybody balk at that? Like, I don't want to be legitimized. I want to.
Yeah, I remember a kid who, you know, he was young, and I knew him through my daughter or something. He got picked up for tagging, and I spoke to him and said, we can get your fine reduced if you do community service with painting and so forth. And he said, no.
Wow.
Interesting.
That is really interesting. But I mean, I'm not surprised. It's just interesting when given the choice.
I know. I know.
How people weigh that out, right?
I went to court with him. He was referring to me as his lawyer.
To be clear, Jayne is not a lawyer.
But I had like the documentation from the city, because I wanted to present it to the judge and say, this is the alternative sentencing. And when it came down to it, actually, I think he accepted it at the moment, and then he decided not to fulfill it. That's how it worked. Yeah.
Got it.
And so he ended up doing just regular community service.
One of the other murals that I love in Jersey City is a new one. It was painted last summer, I think. It's the Joe Pye. Is that what it's called? Joe Pye wheat. It's like a plant, and it's enormous by Journal Square.
I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of like, it's a native plant, and there's a big native plant movement in, well, everywhere, because native plants are very good for the environment, and they attract things like bees and butterflies and things that we need to sustain our environment. And because we're a city, these things are particularly important, because you have to intentionally create these environments for native plants and for things like pollinators or bees to live, these environments, habitats. So I know that the native plants, you could almost call them activists, were very excited about that mural.
So that's a woman, Anne. That's Mona Karan. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, can you see that one? And it's very large. That's a
really
big one.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that one. So that's on my Instagram.
Yeah.
That's another resource if people want to look at my Instagram. I didn't even put it into this. So
could you tell us I mean, I know this, but what is your Instagram? Do you want to put it in the chat?
In the chat, Jayne West. That's my Instagram handle, Jayne West. Was given to me by a 13-year-old at that time when Instagram was very new. I was like, okay, that sounds good, Jayne West, because I spell my name Jayne. And I'm still called Jayne by a number of people in the, graph world and mural arts and whatever. All right. Anything else, Anne?
Any questions, anyone? This is your chance. Oh, I do have a quick question. So Canvas, Canvs, which I do have, which is the app, but also a website, so you can
Yeah.
go to it either way. That is, people can go on that and like almost like zoom around. Like you can locate. It's like a map. It's an interactive map, right, where you can go and find.
Yeah, honestly, I think it works better through the Jersey City website. So
Okay.
Canvas powered the map, but
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
yeah, I just think it's more user friendly sort of on the jcmap.org website, the
Okay.
original one that I showed you, where you can kind of scroll through,
Mhm.
or you could pick a part of town. You could say like, okay, I live over here. Let me go to the map and see what murals are in my neighborhood.
Exactly.
So you,
Right.
I think you have just a little more flexibility with the way they designed it for the JC Map website.
Okay.
I would use Canvas more as like as an app on your phone, you know, that kind of thing. You can also like be a contributor. You can send pictures if you have, you know, good pictures of murals. They can include that in their,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
And also Canvas is bigger than Jersey City. So if you
That's right.
are from Brooklyn and you want to see what's in Brooklyn, you can go over there. But for this project, for our class, you'll be focusing on Jersey City. Even if right now you are not physically in Jersey City, you have access to these images. I mean, if you can go and see the mural you want to work on, that's fantastic, because sometimes it is, well, it's powerful to be in the presence of something so that you can feel the scale, you can feel the community, like where you are, the location. But if you're not here,
Yep.
lots of images to work with.
Yeah.
I have
And,
a
you know,
question.
oh yeah, sorry, Gabe, go ahead.
How long has the mural arts program been around? Like when was it established?
2013.
Ah,
At the end of 2013. So that mural that I showed you, the one with the Lofts Lenape Trail, that was the first one that was completed, and that was completed in 2014. So really, our murals only date back to that time. But don't forget, there were other people doing murals in Jersey City before the mural arts program. So there would have been some Green Villain and Savage Habit, you know, images in other places that you may have seen.
Great. All right. Any last questions for Jayne? All right. So again, I have links for us in our Blackboard page, and I can add more if we need anything else that people, you know, the things that, well, you've got Jayne's Instagram, so you can look at her photos. Lots of, and Jayne's photos are beautiful. They're not just sort of straight shots of the murals. They're interesting photographs of the murals that are, I mean, you have both.
So I have both, yeah. Sometimes I just take a straight shot of the mural, but
Right.
as you know, I mean, do people know your book of poems?
No, they don't. And in fact, I didn't even have a copy of it right here. They're upstairs.
I just looked over my shoulder because I usually keep it right here, but it's on my bookshelf right now. But yeah, Anne chose one of my photographs for the cover of her collection of poems, and it's actually the Shepherd Fairy image, but I broke into the factory across the street and photographed the Shepherd Fairy mural through the windows. So it takes on a different kind of like an element when it's, you know, it changes it. It does. It's not just about that mural. It's about our perception of that mural, or like a different way to view that. And it kind of gives it like a little bit of more mystery to it.
Yeah. And it's
And
a close up like of the woman's eye. That's the mural that's on Monmouth, and it's the woman. Part of it is of a woman with the rose dripping with the oil, but the close up is, yeah, of her face, and it's sort of.
Probably have it somewhere on my desktop because I was just,
I bet you do.
no, I was sending it to somebody who was like, they wanted some artwork for their the building that they live in, whatever. But yeah, and I know that Chef Ferry liked it because he reposted it. So that
Did
was
he? Oh, that's really cool. It's
All right.
it's an amazing photograph. Maybe I'll post that on our, I'll find that photograph, or if you find it, Jane, and send it to me, I'll put it on our Blackboard, our course Blackboard page, so people can say some of the ways that you can, like, it's like it's another layer in the creative process when you're photographing a mural that lives in a community and it becomes part of our public landscape and part of the background, the backdrop of our life, and then to photograph it and in a creative way. And, whether it's just a piece of it or from an unusual angle or people in the photograph, just another layer of interpretation that is powerful and interesting. All right. Well,
Okey-doke.
what's that?
I said, okey-doke.
Yeah, we're good. So thank you so much, Jane, for coming and talking with us and sharing all of this information and these images.
Oh, you're welcome. And
Yes.
again, my pleasure. Happy to
Thanks.
do it. Okay, you're welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
And if everybody in class could stay on, I want to cover a few things in the next 5 minutes or so.
Okay,
Thank you for sharing.
you're welcome. Thanks.